In the middle of a Wyoming blizzard, a 7-year-old girl wrapped her arms around a trembling puppy. The wind screamed across the northern valley like something alive, tearing through the open land with no mercy and no memory. Snow fell sideways, thick and heavy, erasing the dirt road almost as soon as it touched the ground. The SUV slowed suddenly. Gravel crunched beneath the tires as the vehicle lurched to a stop. For a brief moment, the engine idled, its low hum the only sound fighting the storm. Then the passenger door swung open. "Out! Now!" The voice was sharp, rushed, stripped of warmth. Emily Harper barely had time to understand what was happening before she was pulled forward. Her boots hit the frozen ground hard. A second later, a small bundle of fur was shoved into her arms. The puppy whimpered, its body shaking violently against her chest. "Go on," the man said again, not looking at her. "Stretch his legs. I'll be right here." Emily turned back toward the car, snow stinging her face. "It's cold," she said, her voice small, nearly lost in the wind. "Buddy's scared." The man exhaled, impatient. "Just walk a minute." The door slammed shut. The SUV's headlights flared, blinding her. Then the vehicle reversed, turned sharply, and drove away. Emily stood frozen, watching the red taillights shrink, blur, and finally disappear into the wall of white. The sound of the engine faded. The road vanished. The world went quiet, in the worst possible way. "Wait," she whispered. "Please." The wind swallowed the word. She didn't scream, not yet. Her chest felt too tight, as if fear itself had wrapped icy fingers around her ribs. "Time 900 mums." She looked down at the puppy in her arms. Buddy's dark eyes were wide, glassy with panic. His ears were flat against his head, his small body trembling uncontrollably. Emily dropped to her knees in the snow. The cold bit through her jeans instantly, sharp and unforgiving. She pulled Buddy closer, pressing his head under her chin, trying to shield him from the wind with her own body. "It's okay," she murmured, though her teeth were already chattering. "We're gonna stay together. That's what we do, right?" Buddy let out a thin, frightened sound and licked her glove. Snow piled up around them. It crept into her boots, soaked through her sleeves, burned her skin. Emily tried to stand, but the wind shoved her back down. The road was gone now, just endless white in every direction. No houses, no lights, no cell signal, nothing you could call help. She crawled toward the edge of the trees, every movement slow and heavy, like the storm itself was pushing against her. A broken pine lay half-buried nearby, its roots exposed. Emily dragged herself behind it, using the fallen trunk as a shield. Her fingers were numb. Her knees ached. She didn't cry yet. Crying felt like wasting air. "Don't sleep," she whispered to Buddy, forcing her eyes to stay open. "If you sleep, I'll sleep. And Mom said that's bad." The thought of her mother hit her hard then. Her voice, her warmth, the way she used to tuck Emily in on nights like this. 2 winters ago. A hospital room. Machines that beeped until they didn't. "If you're scared," her mom used to say. Breathe slow and think about what you love most. Emily closed her eyes for half a second. Buddy. Only Buddy. The wind howled louder, rattling the trees. Snow filled the space between seconds. Somewhere far away, a door slammed. Or maybe it was just the storm playing tricks on her. Emily tightened her arms around the puppy and whispered the only promise she could make. I won't let go. The night pressed in, cold and endless, and miles away, unseen and unheard, something inside another man shifted, just enough to make him stop walking. I won't let go. Emily repeated the words silently as the storm closed in, each breath a thin cloud that vanished the moment it appeared. Buddy's small body pressed against hers, warm at first, then frighteningly still. The wind found every gap in her clothes, slicing through denim and cotton as if they weren't there at all. She shifted her weight, dragging Buddy closer beneath the fallen pine. The branches above them creaked and groaned, shedding snow in soft collapses that dusted her hair and eyelashes. Emily brushed the flakes away with clumsy fingers, already stiff, already slow. Hey, she whispered to the puppy. Stay awake, okay? Buddy answered with a weak whine. His tongue brushed her glove again, slower this time. Emily's heart began to pound. She pulled one glove off with her teeth and pressed her bare hand against Buddy's side, feeling for movement. There was a faint rise and fall. Too faint. Good, she breathed. That's good. The cold worked its way up her legs, into her chest. Her thoughts grew fuzzy around the edges, like an old television losing signal. She knew this feeling. Her mom had explained it once, sitting on the edge of the bed with a mug of tea between her hands. When you get too cold, she'd said softly, your body tries to trick you into resting. You have to fight it. Emily forced herself to move. She tucked Buddy inside her jacket as best she could, zipping it halfway around his small body. He wriggled weakly, then went still again, nose pressed against her collarbone. See? She murmured, trying to smile. That's better. Her stomach growled, sharp and hollow. She hadn't eaten since earlier that afternoon, when the man had thrown a granola bar into the back seat and told her to make it last. She hadn't complained. Complaining made things worse. Snow drifted higher around the log. The world beyond it no longer existed. There was only white, wind, and the sound of her own breathing. Emily's eyes fluttered. She shook her head hard. No, not yet. She focused on Buddy's name, saying it over and over in her mind like a prayer. Buddy, Buddy, Buddy. The puppy shifted slightly, his paw twitching against her chest. It was enough to keep her awake for another moment. I found you, she whispered. At the shelter. Remember? You were scared then too. Her thoughts wandered back to that day. Rows of cages, barking echoing off concrete walls, the smell of disinfectant. Buddy had been the quiet one, pressed into the corner, watching everything with sad, careful eyes. I said I'd take care of you, Emily said, her voice breaking. I meant it. The wind surged again, harder than before. The fallen pine groaned, shedding another load of snow onto her shoulders. Emily cried out softly as the cold seeped deeper, a dull ache spreading through her arms and legs. She couldn't feel her feet anymore. Panic flickered, then dimmed, replaced by a heavy, dangerous calm. The storm sounded farther away now, muffled, as if she were underwater. Emily leaned her head back against the trunk, eyes half closed. It's okay, she told Buddy, though she wasn't sure who she was convincing. We can rest for just a second. Her breathing slowed. Then, faintly, something cut through the roar of the wind, a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Emily's eyes snapped open. She listened, heart pounding. At first there was nothing but the howl of the blizzard and the creak of trees bending under its weight. She almost gave up, almost let her eyes close again. Then she heard it. Crunch. Another crunch. Footsteps. Her chest tightened. Fear and hope collided, sharp and overwhelming. She tried to stand, failed, and instead dragged herself forward through the snow. Buddy clutched tight against her. "Hello?" she called, her voice barely more than a breath. "Please, help!" The wind tore the word apart. The footsteps stopped. For a terrible second, Emily thought she'd imagined it, thought the storm had finally started playing tricks on her moan. Then a voice cut through the white noise, low and steady. "Hello? Is someone out here?" Emily sobbed. Relief crashed into her so hard it hurt. She forced herself to shout again, every ounce of strength pouring into one word. "Here." A dark shape moved through the snow, growing larger, clearer. A man emerged from the storm, tall and broad, his jacket coated in ice, his face hard-lined and focused. He froze when he saw her. "Oh my God," he said softly. Emily's vision blurred. The last thing she felt before everything went dim was warmth. Strong arms lifting her, pulling Buddy closer, holding them both like they mattered. And far beneath the roar of the storm, something else stirred. A promise, long broken, was about to be kept. Ryan Cole felt the weight of the child in his arms immediately. Too light. Dangerously light. The girl's head lolled against his chest, her breath shallow, uneven. The puppy was tucked inside her jacket, barely moving. "Stay with me," Ryan said, his voice calm but firm. He'd used that tone before, in places where panic got people killed. "Hey, look at me, kid." Her eyes fluttered open for half a second. "Buddy," she whispered. "I've got him," Ryan replied. "You did good. You did real good." He adjusted his grip, securing the girl against his body, one arm wrapped tight around both her and the dog. The wind slammed into him from the side, nearly knocking him off balance. He planted his boots and leaned into it, every muscle working, every step deliberate. This wasn't part of the patrol. Tonight had been routine, a winter check along the northern boundary. Downed fences, wildlife movement, the kind of quiet work Ryan preferred now. He'd taken the ranger job because it kept him alone, because the snow didn't ask questions. But a mile back, something had pulled at him, a pressure in his chest, a sense he'd learned to trust long ago. Something's wrong. He hadn't ignored it then. He wasn't ignoring it now. Ryan moved toward the trees, following the faint outline of the trail he'd come in on. The storm fought him every step of the way. Snow packed into his collar, burned his face, stung his eyes. His radio crackled uselessly against his shoulder. No signal out here in weather like this. "Okay," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "Okay." The girl shivered, violently. He stopped, crouching behind a stand of thick spruce to block the wind. Carefully, he shrugged out of his heavy outer jacket and wrapped it around her and the puppy, pulling it tight. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "I'm Ryan. I'm going to get you somewhere warm. But I need you to keep breathing, all right?" She nodded weakly. Ryan checked the puppy next. The little dog's eyes were half closed, its body stiff with cold. Ryan pressed his hand gently against its chest. The heartbeat was there. Fast, but present. "Hang on, buddy," he muttered. "You too." The words hit him harder than he expected. Buddy. The name echoed in his head, dragging something up from deep memory. Another night. Another storm. Another dog pressed against his chest while the world burned. Rex. Ryan forced the thought away and stood again. This wasn't the time. This wasn't the place. He started moving, slower now, more careful. Every few steps he spoke, keeping his voice steady, human. "You got a name, kid?" A pause. Then barely audible. "Emily. Emily," he repeated. "Good. Stay with me, Emily." They moved like that for what felt like forever. Ryan breaking trail through knee-deep snow, Emily drifting in and out against him, the puppy tucked between them like a fragile secret. His legs burned. His lungs ached. The storm showed no sign of easing. Then, through the white, Ryan saw it. A soft, steady glow. Light. He blinked, afraid it was a trick, time 800 mams. Then he saw it again. Yellow, warm, unmistakably real. A cabin set back from the trail, its windows lit against the night. "Almost there," he said, relief creeping into his voice despite his effort to keep it flat. "You hear me? Almost there." Emily didn't answer, but her fingers tightened weakly in his sleeve. Ryan pushed harder. The cabin came into focus. Old, sturdy, smoke curling from the chimney. He stumbled up the steps and knocked hard. Once, twice. The door flew open. "Oh, Lord!" a woman gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Behind her stood a man with a lined face and gray beard, eyes already assessing, already moving. "Get them inside," he said. "Now!" Warm air rushed out, wrapping around Ryan like a wave. He stepped over the threshold, the door slamming shut behind them, cutting off the storm. The woman, Martha, Ryan remembered, rushed forward with blankets. The man, Tom, cleared a space near the fire. Found them in the woods, Ryan said, lowering Emily carefully. Hypothermia, both of them. Martha knelt immediately, her hand gentle. Sure. You're safe now, sweetheart, she whispered. You're safe. Emily stirred, her eyes opening just enough to see the fire, the light, the faces. Buddy, she murmured. Ryan gently eased the puppy from her jacket and placed him against her chest again. Right here, he said. You didn't let go, neither did I. The fire crackled. The storm raged outside. But inside the cabin, for the first time that night, level strong, the cold began to lose. The cabin door shut tight behind them, and the sound of the storm dropped to a dull, distant roar. For a brief second, Ryan Cole stood still, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling as heat rushed back into his hands and face. The sudden warmth felt almost painful, like pins beneath the skin. Tom Lewis was already moving. He shut the heavy wooden door, slid the bolt into place, then crossed the room with long, practiced steps. Fire's hot, he said calmly. That's good. Martha, get the wool blankets, the thick ones. Martha nodded, already kneeling beside Emily. She didn't ask questions. She didn't waste time. Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime knowing when to be gentle and when to be fast. Sweetheart, she said softly, brushing snow from Emily's hair. Can you hear me? Emily's lashes fluttered. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her fingers were still tangled in the fur of the puppy pressed against her chest. Buddy, Martha murmured, noticing the way the child clung to him. All right. He stays. Ryan eased back just enough to give them space, though every instinct in him wanted to stay close. He watched Martha's hands check Emily's wrists, her neck, the faint pulse beneath skin gone pale and waxy. She's cold, Martha said, but she's fighting. Tom laid a heavy wool blanket over Emily, then another, tucking them tight. You found her just in time, he said to Ryan without looking up. Ryan nodded once. He didn't trust his voice yet. Martha turned her attention to the puppy. She gently lifted Buddy's head, checking his eyes, his gums. Little guy's strong, she said quietly. Cold. Scared him, but he's holding on. Ryan exhaled slowly. Only then did he realize how tight his chest had been. Tom straightened and finally looked at Ryan properly. Where exactly did you find them? North Trail, Ryan said. About a mile past the ridge. Tire tracks leading nowhere. Then footprints, small ones. Tom's jaw tightened. Someone left them. It wasn't a question. Ryan didn't answer right away. He glanced at Emily again, at the way her breathing hitched unevenly beneath the blankets, at the way Buddy's small body rose and fell in fragile rhythm with hers. Yeah, he said finally. Someone left them. The words hung heavy in the warm air. Martha's lips pressed into a thin line. Some people shouldn't be allowed near children, she said. Not angrily, but with a quiet certainty that felt worse than shouting. Ryan moved toward the fireplace, rubbing his hands together as feeling slowly returned. The flames danced bright and steady, casting long shadows across the wooden walls. The cabin smelled of smoke, pine, and something faintly sweet. Cinnamon, maybe. It felt like another world compared to the frozen hell outside. He should have been on the radio by now, calling it in. Protocol said he should, but Protocol hadn't been out there in the storm. Tom poured hot water from a kettle into a metal mug and handed it to Ryan. "Drink," he said. "You look like hell." Ryan took it, nodding his thanks. The steam fogged his vision as he brought the mug to his lips. The warmth slid down his throat, grounding him. "Tracks were fresh," Ryan said after a moment. "SUV. Whoever it was didn't get lost. They knew the road." Tom shook his head slowly. "That makes it worse." Martha adjusted the blankets again. Emily stirred, her eyes opening just a crack. She looked around, confused, then panicked when she didn't immediately recognize where she was. "Hey," Ryan said quickly, stepping closer. He crouched beside her so his face was in her line of sight. "You're okay. You're inside. Warm place." Emily swallowed. He left," she whispered. "I know," Ryan said gently. "You're safe now." Her eyes filled with tears. She was too tired to cry. She tightened her grip on Buddy. "He didn't want him anymore," she said. "Said he was trouble." Martha inhaled sharply, but said nothing. Ryan felt something dark and sharp twist in his gut. He forced his voice to stay steady. "That's not on you," he said, "and it's not on him." Emily nodded faintly, though it was clear she didn't really understand. She was 7. She shouldn't have to. Outside, the wind slammed against the cabin again, rattling the windows. Snow piled higher against the walls, burying tracks, erasing evidence. Ryan stood and moved toward the window, peering out into the white. Somewhere out there, the road was disappearing under fresh snow. Whatever story led Emily and Buddy into the storm was being wiped clean by nature itself. But Ryan had seen the footprints, small, uneven, desperate. And once you saw something like that, you didn't forget it. He turned back toward the fire, toward the child and the dog fighting their way back from the cold, and made a quiet decision he didn't speak out loud. This wasn't over. The fire had been burning for nearly an hour, but Emily's body was still shaking beneath the blankets. Not the violent shivering from before. This was slower now, deeper, like her strength was quietly leaking away. Martha noticed it immediately. "That's not good," she said under her breath. Ryan looked up from the table where he'd been drying his gloves. "What is it?" "She's exhausted," Martha replied. "Cold takes more than heat. It takes fight." Emily's eyes were half open, unfocused. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out this time. Buddy stirred weakly, lifting his head just enough to press his nose under her chin. Ryan crossed the room in 3 steps and knelt beside her again. Emily, he said, keeping his voice low, steady. Hey, look at me. Her eyes flickered toward him, then drifted away. Don't let go, he said firmly. Not yet. Tom came back from the small bedroom carrying an old digital thermometer and a faded first aid kit. Her temperature's still low, he said after checking. We're warming her too fast. We risk shock. Too slow. We lose her. The words landed hard. Ryan clenched his jaw. He'd heard variations of that sentence in places far worse than this cabin. Mountains, deserts, war zones, where time made the rules and mercy wasn't on the schedule. Martha reached for a mug and dipped a spoon into it, letting steam rise. Emily, she said gently. Sweetheart, can you sip this for me? Just a little. Emily's lips trembled. She shook her head weakly. Time 900 mots. Tired, she whispered. Ryan felt it then. The moment when hope didn't vanish all at once, but thinned, stretched, to breaking. He glanced down at Buddy. The puppy's breathing was shallow now, his small chest barely moving. Ryan swallowed hard. No, he said quietly. We're not doing this. He shrugged off his thermal layer and sat down on the floor, back against the couch. Carefully, deliberately. He shifted Emily and Buddy against his chest, pulling the blankets around all three of them. What are you doing? Tom asked. Sharing heat, Ryan replied. Human heat works faster than fire. Martha watched him for a moment, then nodded. He's right. Ryan wrapped one arm around Emily's shoulders, the other around Buddy. He focused on his breathing. Slow, even, the way he'd been trained. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Match me, he murmured near Emily's ear. Slow breaths. You hear me? She didn't answer, but after a few seconds, her breathing shifted, sinking faintly with his. Ryan closed his eyes. Rex's weight pressed into his memory. Another night. Another body shaking against his chest. Another promise whispered into the dark. I won't leave you. His throat tightened, but he didn't stop breathing. Didn't stop holding on. Minutes passed, then more. The fire popped softly. The kettle whistled again. Outside, the storm continued its assault, indifferent to what was happening inside the cabin. Martha knelt nearby, watching Emily's color return, slowly, painfully slow. Pink crept back into her cheeks. Her fingers twitched. There, Martha said quietly. She's coming back. Emily's eyes opened wider this time. She looked up at Ryan, confusion giving way to fear. Don't, she said suddenly, her voice stronger than before. Don't leave. Ryan opened his eyes and met her gaze. I'm not, he said without hesitation. Not going anywhere. She searched his face for cracks, for lies. Then she nodded once and let her head rest against his chest. Buddy stirred again, letting out a small, tired sound. "That's it," Tom murmured. "That's the fight." Ryan stayed where he was, unmoving, even as his legs went numb and his shoulders burned. He didn't care. Pain was familiar. This mattered. After a long while, Emily whispered, "He said he'd come back." Ryan didn't respond right away. "People say a lot of things," he said finally. "What matters is what they do." Emily's grip tightened slightly in his shirt. "He didn't like Buddy," she said. "Said dogs cost money." Ryan felt a slow, cold anger rise. Not explosive, not loud, but deep and dangerous. The kind that stayed with you. "He was wrong," Ryan said. "About a lot of things." Emily nodded, eyes closing again. But this time it looked like rest, not surrender. Ryan stared into the fire, jaw set. Somewhere out there, a man had driven away and trusted the storm to finish the job. Ryan Cole had spent his life stopping threats that looked like enemies. This one looked like a parent. And that made it personal. What should I do next? Ryan had asked himself that question 1,000 times in his life. In combat, the answer came from training. Here, in a quiet cabin, with a child breathing against his chest. The answer came from somewhere else. Emily slept now. Real sleep. Not the dangerous drifting from before. Her face had softened, the tight lines easing as warmth worked its way back into her small body. Buddy lay curled between them, rising and falling in rhythm with her breaths. The puppy twitched once, then settled. Ryan didn't move. Tom watched from across the room, arms crossed. "You can't carry this alone," he said gently. "You know that." Ryan nodded without looking up. "I know." Martha cleared the table, her movements slow, careful, as if the night itself might shatter if handled too roughly. "Authorities will want statements," she said. "Child protective services, medical checks, paperwork." Paperwork. The word felt strange here, against the smell of pine and smoke and the fragile sound of a child sleeping. Ryan finally shifted, easing Emily onto the couch without waking her. He tucked the blanket under her chin, then stood and stepped away, stretching stiffness from his shoulders. His body ached in the familiar way. Earned, honest pain. He preferred it to helplessness. He pulled his phone from his pocket and stepped closer to the window. Still no signal. Outside, the storm showed no sign of letting up. Snow erased the world a few feet past the glass. Tom followed him. "Road's closed," he said. "County shut it down an hour ago. Time 700 pm. Even emergency services won't make it through until morning." Ryan exhaled slowly. That gave him time. Time could be dangerous, but it could also be useful. "I'm calling it in as soon as I get a bar," Ryan said. "But tonight, she stays here." Martha nodded without hesitation. "She stays." Ryan glanced back at Emily. "Someone left her out there on purpose," he said quietly. "That wasn't panic. That was a choice." Tom's jaw tightened. You sure? Ryan didn't hesitate. I've seen accidents. This wasn't one. Silence settled between them. Heavy. Shared. Ryan moved to the small kitchen counter and poured himself a cup of black coffee from the pot Martha kept warm. He didn't add sugar. Didn't sit down. He stood there, eyes distant, the steam fogging his vision. I should have kept walking, he said suddenly. Martha looked up. What? Out there, Ryan continued. I felt it. The pull. Same one I ignored once before. Tom didn't interrupt. I told myself I was done saving people, Ryan said. That I'd paid enough. Lost enough. His gaze drifted to Buddy. The puppy's collar had slipped into view. A worn strip of leather, old for a dog so young. Ryan stepped closer and crouched, careful not to wake Emily, as he turned the tag over between his fingers. The letters caught the firelight. USMC K9. Rex. Ryan froze. The cabin seemed to tilt slightly, like the world had shifted on its axis. No, he whispered. Martha leaned in. What is it? Ryan swallowed. His throat felt tight, dry. That name, he said. That was my dog. Tom frowned. You sure? I buried him, Ryan said hoarsely. Or at least, I thought I did. Images slammed into him without warning. Sandstorms, heat, the sharp metallic smell of blood and dust. Rex lunging forward, Rex pulling him back, Rex disappearing in smoke and fire. Declared lost. Declared dead. Ryan stared at the sleeping puppy. That's not possible. But the tag was real, cold beneath his fingers, solid. Martha's voice was soft. Maybe it's just a name. Ryan shook his head slowly. No, that tag was custom, unit issued. Tom let out a low breath. Then this isn't just about a child. Ryan straightened, a hard clarity settling in. No, he said. It isn't. He looked from Emily to Buddy, then back to the storm beyond the glass. Whatever story had led them here was bigger than abandonment, bigger than bad decisions. It reached back into a past Ryan had never fully closed. He clipped the tag back into place gently. I don't walk away twice, he said. Not from this. Outside, the wind howled again. But inside the cabin, something had shifted. Not hope exactly. Resolve. Morning did not arrive gently. It crept in through the cabin windows as a pale, uncertain light, pressing against frost-laced glass. The storm had not ended, but it had changed. Less violent now, more patient, as if waiting. Ryan hadn't slept. He sat in a wooden chair near the fire, boots still on, elbows resting on his knees. Across the room, Emily slept curled on the couch, Buddy tucked beneath her chin. Each breath she took came easier than the last. Each rise and fall of her chest felt like a small victory. Tom poured coffee and set a mug beside Ryan without a word. The two men shared a look that didn't need explaining. "She asked for you," Martha whispered from the kitchen doorway. "In the night." Ryan nodded. "I know." He had felt it. Emily's fingers tightening around his sleeve. The soft murmur of his name spoken half asleep. He had answered every time, low, steady, anchoring her back to the present. Ryan stood and walked to the window. Outside, snow drifted across the yard in slow, deliberate waves. The road was still gone. No tracks, no direction. Just white. He checked his phone again. One bar flickered, then disappeared. "Not yet," he muttered. Behind him, Emily stirred. Ryan turned as her eyes opened, brown and wary, scanning the unfamiliar room. Panic flared for a split second. Then she saw him. "You're still here," she said, her voice hoarse. "I told you," Ryan replied, stepping closer. "I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, then looked down at Buddy. The puppy yawned and nudged her chin, tail thumping weakly against the blanket. "He's warm," Emily said, surprised. "That's because you kept him that way," Ryan said. "You did that." Emily frowned slightly, as if unsure she deserved the credit. "He's my responsibility," she said after a moment. "That's what Mom said." Ryan felt the familiar pull in his chest, the quiet ache of something lost, something sacred. "Your mom sounds like she knew what mattered." Emily hesitated. "She died," she said simply. "After that, things got loud, then quiet, then bad." Ryan didn't push. He had learned long ago that some truths came only when they were ready. Tom stepped in from the back room. "Road crews say it'll be hours," he said, "but county deputies are trying to get through." Ryan nodded. "We're not going anywhere until they do." Emily's shoulders tensed. "Are they taking Buddy?" "No," Ryan said immediately. "No one's taking him." Her eyes searched his face. "Promise?" Ryan held her gaze. "Promise." She let out a breath she'd been holding far too long. Martha knelt and handed Emily a bowl of oatmeal. "Slow," she said kindly. "Just a little." Emily ate, each spoonful careful. Buddy watched closely, then tried to nose the bowl. Martha smiled despite herself. "He's got spirit." Ryan's eyes drifted back to the collar tag. He hadn't told Emily about it. Not yet. Some things needed the right moment. Tom joined Ryan by the fire. "You thinking what I think you're thinking?" Ryan didn't look at him. "If someone could leave a kid in a blizzard," he said, "they'll come back looking when the storm clears, either to cover their tracks or finish the job." Tom's expression hardened. "Then she stays." Ryan nodded. "And I stay too." A knock rattled the door. Sharp. Sudden. Emily jumped. Ryan was on his feet instantly, moving between her and the door. "Behind me," he said softly. Tom grabbed the shotgun from above the mantel, not threatening, just ready. Martha stood her ground, chin lifted. Ryan opened the door a crack. A uniformed deputy stood on the porch, snow crusted on his hat, breath visible in the cold air. "Morning," he said. "We got a call about a missing child." Ryan stepped outside, closing the door behind him. "Yes," he said. "You did." Behind him, the cabin was quiet. Safe. For now. Ryan looked out across the white, endless land and felt the weight of the night settle fully into his bones. Some storms didn't end when the snow stopped falling. They waited. The deputy stepped inside with a careful kind of respect, as if he understood he was crossing into something fragile. Snow melted off his boots, pooling on the old wooden floor. He took off his hat and tucked it under his arm before speaking again. "Name's Deputy Alan Morris," he said. "County Sheriff's Office." Ryan nodded once. "Ryan Cole, State Ranger." The deputy's eyes flicked briefly to Ryan's jacket, the posture, the way he stood. Calm, alert, already measuring distance and risk. Recognition passed between them without words. Inside, the cabin felt different in daylight. The fire still burned, but softer now. Sunlight filtered through frost-coated windows, turning the room a warm amber. It was the kind of light that made things feel safer than they really were. Emily sat at the small table with Martha, a blanket still around her shoulders. Buddy lay at her feet, chewing on a scrap of old rope Tom had dug out from somewhere. His tail thumped faintly when he saw Ryan. "She okay?" the deputy asked quietly. "She will be," Martha replied before Ryan could answer. "She's strong." Deputy Morris nodded, then crouched a few feet away from Emily, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey there, I'm Alan. You did a brave thing last night." Emily looked at Ryan first. He gave her a small nod. "He left," she said suddenly. Her voice was steadier than anyone expected. "He said he'd come back, but he didn't." The deputy didn't rush her. He didn't interrupt. He let the silence do its work. "Who left you?" he asked. Emily swallowed. "My dad," she said. "Not my real one." Martha's hand tightened around Emily's. "What's his name, sweetheart?" the deputy asked. Emily hesitated, eyes flicking again to Ryan. "Mark," she said. "Mark Turner." The name settled into the room like a stone dropped into water. Ryan felt the shift immediately. The way Tom's shoulders stiffened. The way Martha's mouth pressed into a thin line. People like that didn't disappear quietly. They left ripples. "Where does Mark Turner live?" Deputy Morris asked. Emily shook her head. "We move a lot." Ryan straightened. "Vehicle was an SUV," he said. "Dark, late model, plates were snow-covered." Deputy Morris nodded, pulling out a small notebook. "That narrows it some." Emily's hands began to shake. Buddy stood and pressed against her leg, grounding her. She rested her palm on his head automatically. "I thought," she said softly, "if I stayed quiet, he'd come back." The words hit harder than anything else had. Deputy Morris closed his notebook slowly. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. Not one thing. Ryan felt a low burn settle in his chest. Anger. Controlled. Steady. The kind that didn't fade quickly. Tom cleared his throat. What happens now? The deputy stood. Medical evaluation first, he said. Hypothermia's no joke. Then Child Protective Services steps in. Temporary placement. Statements. Emily's breathing quickened. No, she said. I don't want to go. Ryan stepped forward without thinking. She doesn't leave today. Deputy Morris studied him. That's not your call. Ryan met his gaze evenly. Roads are still closed. Weather's still bad. She's safer here than in a transport truck bouncing through snow. The deputy considered that. She'll need legal guardianship sorted out. Emergency care documentation. Possibly a family law attorney. Ryan nodded. I know. Emily looked between them, fear rising again. Are they taking Buddy? Deputy Morris shook his head. No one's separating you today. Ryan added quietly, and no one will. Buddy wagged his tail once as if he understood. Outside, an engine sounded briefly, then faded. The storm was loosening its grip, but the damage it left behind was only beginning to show. Deputy Morris tucked his notebook away. We'll put out a bolo on Mark Turner, he said, and we'll follow up on that vehicle. If he abandoned a child in a blizzard, this turns criminal fast. Ryan didn't respond. His jaw tightened. The deputy paused at the door. For what it's worth, he said to Ryan, you did the right thing. Ryan nodded. He didn't trust himself to say more. As the door closed again, the cabin fell quiet. Sunlight crept further across the floor. Emily leaned back in her chair, exhausted, but awake. Are we in trouble? She asked. Ryan crouched in front of her. No, he said. You're protected. Outside, the snow continued to melt, slowly, revealing the world beneath it. And with it, the truth. The deputy's truck disappeared down what remained of the road, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than the storm itself. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled softly, as if nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. Emily sat on the couch with Buddy curled against her side. She traced circles in the fur behind his ears, a steady, unconscious motion that kept her anchored. Ryan watched her from the kitchen doorway, careful not to crowd her space. Martha broke the quiet first. I'm going to make soup, she said, more statement than suggestion. The kind that sticks with you. Tom nodded. I'll check the generator. Their movement gave Emily room to breathe. Ryan stepped closer and lowered himself into the chair across from her. Emily, he said gently, the deputy's going to ask more questions later. I want you to know, you don't have to rush anything. We do this at your pace. She looked up at him, studying his face, as if trying to decide how much of the truth she could trust him with. He wasn't always like that, she said suddenly. Ryan didn't interrupt. When Mom was alive, Mark tried harder. Emily continued. He smiled more. He didn't yell at Buddy. Her voice wavered, but didn't break. She was past crying now. This was something else. Memory settling into shape. What changed? Ryan asked. Emily shrugged slightly. Money, I think. He said everything cost too much. Food, gas, vet bills. She glanced down at Buddy. He said dogs are liabilities. Ryan felt the word land hard. Liability. Time seen 100 mounds. He'd heard it before, in meetings, in reports, in places where living beings were reduced to numbers. He told me not to talk, Emily said. Said people don't like noisy kids. Ryan leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. That wasn't right. Emily nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. I tried to be quiet. Something inside Ryan tightened. He forced himself to stay calm, steady, the way she needed him to be. When we got in the car yesterday, Emily went on, he said Buddy needed a checkup, but we didn't go to town. We kept driving. Then the road got bad. She paused, swallowing. Buddy shifted closer, pressing his side into her leg. He told me to get out so Buddy could walk, she whispered. Then he drove away. The words sat between them, raw, unadorned. No dramatics, no exaggeration, just truth. Ryan nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. She looked up. Am I in trouble? No, Ryan said immediately. You're not. What if he comes back? Emily asked. Ryan didn't answer right away. He thought of the tracks in the snow, the way the storm had tried to erase them, the deputy's tight expression when the name Mark Turner had been spoken. If he does, Ryan said carefully, he won't get near you. Emily's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. Martha returned with bowls of soup, the smell rich, grounding. Emily ate slowly, carefully, as if afraid the warmth might vanish if she moved too fast. Ryan noticed how Buddy waited until she'd taken a few bites before nudging his nose toward the bowl. Martha smiled faintly. Smart dog. Ryan's gaze drifted back to the collar. The tag rested against Buddy's chest. Dull. Unmistakable. USMC K9. Rex. He reached out and turned it over again, as if hoping it might change. Emily noticed. That's old, she said. The lady at the shelter said Buddy's mom was a working dog. A hero. Ryan's breath caught. Did she say where she came from? Emily shook her head. Just that someone found her hurt and brought her in. Ryan leaned back, staring into the fire. Pieces were lining up. Slow, deliberate. Paperwork lost. Assumptions made. A dog written off because it was easier that way. Tom came back in, snow dusting his shoulders. Generator's fine, he said. But I made a call. Old friend in town. Word travels fast out here. Ryan met his eyes. About Mark Turner? Tom nodded. Names come up before. Debt, short temper, nothing that stuck. But abandonment in a blizzard? He shook his head. That sticks. Emily looked up sharply. He's not coming back, is he? Ryan met her gaze. If he does, it won't be on his terms. Outside, the wind softened. Snow slid from the roof in heavy sheets, revealing dark wood beneath. Ryan stood and walked to the window. For the first time since the storm began, he could see the outline of the land again. Scarred, cold, but still standing. The truth wasn't done unfolding. It never was. The soup bowls were cleared, the cabin settling into a late morning hush, broken only by the soft tick of the wall clock and the fire breathing low. Emily leaned back against the couch cushions, eyelids heavy, but alert now, the way someone looks when they're finally warm and starting to feel the weight of everything that came before. Buddy shifted in his sleep and rolled onto his side, the worn leather collar sliding into view. Ryan noticed it at the same moment Emily did. She reached down and straightened the tag with careful fingers. It's old, she said again, as if testing the word. They told me that at the shelter. Said it belonged to his mom. Ryan moved closer, the tag catching the firelight as he crouched. The letters were shallow from years of wear, but unmistakable. USMC K9, Rex. He didn't touch it right away. He just stared, letting the memory align with the metal in front of him. That tag, he said quietly, was issued to my unit. Emily looked up. You knew her? Ryan nodded once. I knew him. Silence fell. Even the fire seemed to quiet, the crackle softening to a low murmur. Tom straightened in his chair. You're sure? Ryan reached out now, turning the tag over between his fingers. The serial number on the back was partially worn, but the notch along the edge, the one he'd filed himself so it wouldn't catch on brush, was still there. I filed that, Ryan said, with a multi-tool, in a desert halfway across the world. Martha's hand went to her mouth. Emily's brow furrowed. But Buddy's a puppy. Ryan nodded slowly. Which means his mother survived. The words landed carefully, like something fragile being set down. Ryan leaned back on his heels, the cabin fading as memory pushed forward. Heat, dust, the smell of metal and burned rubber. Rex surging ahead, stopping short, barking once, sharp, urgent, the blast, the smoke, the aftermath. They told me he was gone, Ryan said. Listed as lost in action. No recovery. Tom shook his head. Paperwork gets messy. Paperwork buries things, Ryan replied, sometimes on purpose. Emily hugged Buddy closer. So his mom was brave. She was, Ryan said. Smarter than most people I've known. Emily thought about that. She didn't give up. Ryan met her gaze. Neither did you. Martha moved to the shelf and pulled down an old laptop, its edges scuffed. If that dog was turned in somewhere, she said, there'd be records, adoptions, transfers, veterinary costs. Ryan nodded. High-value working dogs don't just disappear. There's insurance, contracts, liability. The word tasted bitter. Someone signed off on declaring him gone. Tom's eyes narrowed. And someone benefited. Ryan stood and paced slowly, hands flexing at his sides. This wasn't a battlefield, but the rules were familiar. Follow the trail. Don't rush. Protect the vulnerable. Emily watched him move. Are you mad? She asked. Ryan stopped. He knelt in front of her, eye level. I'm focused, he said. There's a difference. She nodded, trusting him without knowing why. Trust like that was a responsibility, not a gift. A phone buzzed on the counter. Ryan turned, surprised. 1 bar, then 2. He picked it up. A missed call. A voicemail notification. County number. He stepped into the corner and listened. Ryan, this is Deputy Morris, the message said. We ran the name Mark Turner. There's more here than we thought. Call me back as soon as you can. Ryan ended the message and stood still for a moment, feeling the lines converge. A child abandoned in a blizzard. A man with debt and a temper. A military dog written off. Reappearing as a bloodlum in a shelter system funded by grants, donations, and government reimbursements. High stakes hid well behind small actions. Ryan clipped the tag back into place. Careful, respectful. This collar shouldn't exist here, he said. But it does, which means someone made a choice they thought no one would question. Emily looked down at Buddy, then back up. Are they going to take him? No. Martha crossed the room and placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. You're sure about this road? Ryan nodded. I've walked worse. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time since the storm began, striking the snow and throwing light across the Mtata Valley. The land looked clean, innocent. Ryan knew better. The truth rarely arrived all at once. It came in pieces, tags, names, quiet decisions made long ago. And when it finally showed itself, it demanded an answer. The call connected on the second ring. Ryan, Deputy Morris said, his voice lower than before. You need to hear this carefully. Ryan stepped away from the couch, lowering his voice as well. I'm listening. We pulled Mark Turner's records, the deputy continued. Short-term jobs, construction, delivery, rideshare, a trail of unpaid bills, eviction notices, and, this is the part that matters, 2 months ago he tried to file an insurance claim for a working dog he said died in a vehicle incident. Ryan closed his eyes. He doesn't own a working dog, Ryan said. He claimed he did, Morris replied. Said the animal was part of a training program tied to private security contracting. The paperwork was sloppy, but someone nearly approved it. Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. So he tried to cash in on a dog that wasn't his. That's what it looks like, Morris said. And when the claim stalled, things went south fast. Ryan glanced back at the couch. Emily was awake again, watching Buddy chew thoughtfully on the rope. She looked calm, but Ryan recognized the stillness. She was listening without trying to. "Did he know about the collar?" Ryan asked. "Yes," Morris said. "We think so. Shelter records show he asked specifically about military tags. Wanted to know if they could increase value." The words felt oily, contaminated. "And the mother?" Ryan asked. "Brought in 3 years ago," Morris said. "Found limping near an abandoned rest stop. No handler listed. Declared adoptable. Time 1,200 pounds. She stayed at the shelter until she passed last year." Ryan swallowed. "She survived," he said quietly. "Yes," Morris replied. "She did." Ryan ended the call and stood still for a moment, letting the truth settle into place. Not a miracle. Not a coincidence. A chain of small, selfish decisions that had led straight to a child in a blizzard. He crossed the room and knelt beside Emily. "Ryan?" she asked. "I need to tell you something," he said gently. "About Buddy's family." Emily listened without interrupting as Ryan explained. About Rex, about the working dog program, about the shelter. He kept his words simple, honest. No blame where it didn't belong. "So Buddy's mom was a hero," Emily said when he finished. "Yes," Ryan said, "and so is he." Emily's mouth curved into the smallest smile. Then it faded. "Is that why Mark got mad?" Ryan nodded. "I think he thought Buddy was worth money, not love." Emily hugged Buddy tighter. "He was wrong." "He was," Ryan agreed. Tom cleared his throat from across the room. "Deputy coming back?" "Yes," Ryan said. "With CPS and a family law attorney. This turns criminal." Emily stiffened. "Do I have to go?" Ryan met her eyes. "Not today. And not alone." Martha set a mug of tea in front of Emily. "There are good people in the system," she said softly. "Time 400 NIMS. But it takes time to find them." Ryan stood and looked out the window again. The valley had opened up under the sun. Snow glittering, roads slowly reappearing. The world pretending nothing had happened. "We'll need legal advice, Mom," Ryan said to Tom. "Guardianship, emergency placement. The right personal injury attorney could also push charges for endangerment." Tom nodded. "I know someone." Emily swung her legs slightly, thinking. "If they ask me questions," she said, "can Buddy come?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "Yes." Buddy thumped his tail as if in agreement. Outside, an engine approached. Tires on packed snow. The sound carried clearly now that the storm had loosened its grip. Ryan straightened. "That'll be them." Emily looked up at him. "You're not leaving, right?" Ryan shook his head. "I already made that mistake once." He opened the door as the vehicles pulled in. Official, orderly, unavoidable. CPS, the deputy. A woman in a wool coat carrying a folder thick with forms. Ryan stepped forward first, positioning himself just enough between the door and the couch. "Before we begin," he said evenly, There are a few things you need to understand. The past had come back alive, and this time, Ryan intended to meet it head-on. The cabin door closed behind the last official, and the room seemed to shrink with the weight of it. Deputy Morris stood near the hearth, hat tucked under his arm. Beside him was a woman in a charcoal coat, glasses thin and practical, a folder pressed to her chest. She introduced herself as Laura Bennett, a family law attorney contracted for emergency cases in rural counties. Her voice was calm, measured, the kind that carried authority without raising volume. "Emily," Laura said gently, lowering herself to a knee so they were eye level. "I'm here to make sure you're safe." Emily didn't answer right away. She looked at Ryan. He nodded. "You can talk to her. I'm right here." Emily's fingers curled in Buddy's fur. "I don't want to go anywhere," she said. Laura glanced at the deputy, then back at Emily. "No one is moving you today," she said. "Roads are still restricted. Medical clearance isn't complete. And you're in a safe place." Ryan felt a small release in his chest. Temporary. Fragile. But real. Laura stood and turned to Ryan. "We'll need statements," she said. "Yours, the homeowner's, and Emily's, when she's ready. There's enough here to open a case for child endangerment. Potential insurance claim fraud, too, based on what the deputy briefed me." Ryan nodded. "I can provide everything I know." Tom folded his arms. "What about guardianship?" Laura met his gaze. "Emergency legal guardianship is possible," she said. "Short-term, time £800. It requires a safe residence, background checks, and a clear plan. It also helps if a responsible adult steps forward." Ryan didn't look away. "I'll step forward." The words surprised even him. They landed solidly, without wobble. Emily's head snapped up. "Really?" Ryan turned to her. "If you want me to." She searched his face again, always checking, always careful. "I want Buddy with me," she said. "That's non-negotiable," Ryan replied. Laura made a note. "We'll document the animal as a companion for emotional support," she said. "That helps." Deputy Morris cleared his throat. "We also need to discuss Mark Turner. He's been flagged. If he shows up, call immediately. Do not engage." Ryan's jaw tightened. "He won't get past the porch." The deputy didn't challenge that. "Still, call." Emily shifted closer to Ryan. "Is he mad?" Ryan chose his words carefully. "He made choices," he said. "Now there are consequences." Laura closed her folder. "For today, Emily stays put. We'll arrange a medical check with a mobile unit once the road clears. Tomorrow, we file." The officials moved toward the door, methodical, practiced. As they stepped outside, sunlight flared off fresh snow, bright enough to make everyone squint. The door shut again. Martha let out a breath she'd been holding. "Tea?" "Yes," Ryan said. "Please. Time 1000 ton." As the kettle warmed, Ryan crouched beside Emily. You did great. She shrugged. I just told the truth. That's harder than it sounds, he said. She considered that. Will I have to go back? Ryan shook his head. Not unless you choose to. Emily leaned into him. Tentative at first, then solid. Buddy pressed between them, tail tapping the floor. Tom watched from the window. Truck coming up the drive. Ryan straightened instantly. A dark SUV rolled to a stop just short of the cabin. The engine idled. The driver didn't get out. Emily stiffened. That's his car. Ryan moved to the door, but didn't open it. He stood there, steady, visible through the glass. The SUV sat for a long moment. Then the engine revved, tires spinning briefly before the vehicle turned and disappeared down the road. Silence returned, thicker now. Ryan exhaled slowly. That was him. Emily's voice was small. He didn't come in. Ryan met her eyes. Because he knows he can't. Tom checked the lock. We should think about security, cameras, motion lights. Ryan nodded. Home security systems aren't a luxury out here. They're insurance. Martha set the tea down. So is doing the right thing. Ryan looked at Emily, at Buddy, at the cabin glowing under winter sun. The line had been drawn, not by law alone, but by choice. And he intended to hold it. The house felt different after the SUV disappeared. Not safer, just quieter, like a held breath that hadn't decided whether to release. Emily sat at the table with Buddy at her feet, tracing the wood grain with one finger, while the adults spoke in low voices near the window. Ryan leaned against the counter, eyes on the drive. He didn't like how quickly the vehicle had left. Not panic. Calculation. Tom broke the silence. If he came once, he'll come again. Ryan nodded. Which means we don't wait. Martha glanced at Emily. She needs rest. She also needs stability, Ryan said. The kind that doesn't disappear when the sun goes down. Emily looked up. Are we moving? Ryan crossed the room and knelt so they were level. Only if you want to. There are options. She hugged her knees. I don't want to be a problem. Ryan's jaw tightened. You're not a problem. You're a person. Buddy patted over and rested his chin on her shoe. Emily smiled faintly, then looked back at Ryan. What happens if I say I want to stay? Ryan took a breath. Then I call Laura. We start the paperwork. Emergency guardianship first. It's family law, not punishment. It's protection. Tom added, we can help. References. Safe residence. We've got history here. Emily considered that, eyes drifting to the window, to the trees standing steady under fresh snow. What? About school? We'll arrange remote learning until the road's clear, Ryan said. There are services for that. It's common out here. And Buddy? She asked. Ryan didn't hesitate. Registered companion. Vet check. He stays with you. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, the fear was still there, but it had softened. "Okay," she said. "I want to stay." Ryan felt it then. Not relief, not triumph. Responsibility settling into place like a weight he chose to carry. He stood and stepped aside, dialing Laura's number. She answered quickly. "I'm in," Ryan said. "Emergency guardianship. Today." "Understood," Laura replied. "I'll file the motion. We'll need signatures and a brief statement from the child, but we can do it here." Ryan ended the call and turned back to Emily. "We'll do this together." Outside, the light shifted as clouds passed. Tom moved to the shed and returned with a small box of motion sensors he'd never installed. "I was saving these, he said. "Guess tonight's the night." Ryan helped mount them along the porch and the drive. Hands steady, movements efficient. Practical steps grounded him. He thought about insurance, home riders, liability coverage, the mundane armor that kept good intentions from turning into disasters. Inside, Martha found a spare notebook and slid it toward Emily. "For anything you want to write," she said, "or draw." Emily opened it, hesitated, then wrote her name carefully on the first page. Under it, she added buddies. The letters weren't perfect. They didn't need to be. The knock came just before dusk, soft, deliberate. Ryan opened the door to Laura and Deputy Morris. Paperwork followed. Signatures. A few questions, asked gently, without hurry. Emily answered when she was ready. Buddy's presence a constant, calming anchor. When it was done, Laura closed the folder. "For the next 72 hours, she said, "Ryan is Emily's legal guardian, pending review." Emily looked at Ryan. "That means you're stuck with me?" Ryan smiled. "Looks that way." Outside, the wind rose again, testing the new lights. They flicked on, steady, bright. The valley answered with silence. Later, as the fire burned low, Emily spoke without looking up. "He said people leave." Ryan stared into the flames. "Some do, some stay." She nodded, as if filing the thought away. Buddy sighed and settled. The choice had been made, not in court, not in anger, but in a quiet room under winter light. And sometimes, that was how lives changed. Morning arrived without ceremony. The lights along the porch clicked off as the sun climbed, and the valley exhaled. No longer bracing, just awake. Snowmelt traced thin lines down the cabin steps, revealing wood worn smooth by years of boots and weather. Inside, the house carried a softer rhythm now, one shaped by routine instead of urgency. Emily woke before anyone else. She padded into the kitchen in borrowed socks, Buddy trotting behind her, nails clicking on the floor. The smell of coffee was already there. Ryan stood at the counter, reading an email on his phone. Updates from Laura. Timelines. Next steps. He looked up when he heard them. "Morning," he said. Emily nodded. "I can help," she offered, eyeing the toaster like it might argue. "Deal," Ryan said. "You handle the plates." They worked side by side without much talking. That felt right. Buddy stationed himself between them, hopeful, vigilant. When the toast popped, Emily jumped, then laughed at herself, surprised by the sound. Tom came in from outside, brushing snow from his jacket. "Fence on the north side held," he said. "I'll mend the loose post later." Ryan nodded. "I'll help." Martha set a bowl on the table. "Oatmeal," she announced, "with apples." Emily smiled, small but genuine. She sat, waited for Buddy to settle, then ate. No rush. No fear that the warmth would vanish if she moved wrong. After breakfast, Ryan pulled on gloves and stepped outside, with Tom. The cold was gentler now, sunlight sharp on the snow. They worked quietly, resetting a post, tightening wire, checking the motion lights. Practical tasks, the kind that built a day from the ground up. Inside, Emily filled the notebook Martha had given her. She drew the cabin first, then the trees, then a small figure with a dog beside it. She paused, added another figure near the door. Taller, steadier. Martha watched from the sink. "That looks nice," she said. Emily nodded. "It's quiet." "That's a good place to start," Martha replied. By afternoon, the road reopened. A mobile clinic arrived. Efficient, calm. A nurse checked Emily's vitals, praised her resilience, and left behind instructions. Hydration, rest, follow-up. A veterinarian friend of Tom's stopped by too, scanning Buddy, declaring him healthy. "Good genetics," he said, "and a good home." Ryan made calls, home insurance adjustments, a security service quote, a pediatric appointment. He kept it simple, deliberate, high-value decisions made low-key, the kind that lasted. As dusk approached, Emily stood at the window watching the lights flick on along the drive. "They don't blink," she said. "They're meant not to," Ryan replied. She hesitated. If he comes back?" Ryan answered without looking away from the window. "Then the system works, and we're ready." Emily considered that. "Okay." Dinner was stew and bread. Laughter surfaced, unexpectedly, when Buddy tried to steal a carrot, when Tom pretended not to notice.